Welcome to the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, empowering your real estate investing with techniques, opportunities, and information, minus the BS and sales pitches. Now, please welcome the host of the Investor Empowerment Series, Joe Mueller, from the Tough as Nails Investment Syndicate, Joe Mueller.
All right, I know you guys are all pumped up about hearing more about the IMN conference, and we're supposed to be broadcasting live this week. I'm putting that on hold. Post that out for one more week. This is the Investor Empowerment Series radio show, episode number 44. I wanted to do this quick podcast unrelated to IMN because I just want to show you what it takes to some degree to constantly be analyzing deals in order to be a successful real estate investor. Today across my desk came a 6-house package down in the St. Charles area. This package is actually on the MLS. I saw it come up probably 2 days ago. I sat on it, didn't make any moves, didn't even really focus on what I saw on the MLS. My bad, because I've been busy with other things. Today I found some time as I'm getting ready to actually pack and attend the IMN conference because I'm heading out of the gate here tomorrow to head down to Miami. Just wanted to go over this deal real quick before I made a decision on whether or not I'm going to be spending any time working on it while I'm at the conference. And I'm going to be honest, the last time I went to the IMN conference, I bought a house while I was attending the conference because it created the motivation to make a move and move forward with a property. As I was there looking at numbers, being in that environment, I thought, what the heck am I thinking about this opportunity so hard for? I need to take it down. It was a cash flow, passive income rental house. I had the opportunity to pick up at a pretty good discount. For whatever reason, I was, contemplating the acquisition price, and it was a wholesale deal, so I was kind of wondering on what the wholesaler was going to get and if it was going to be a good plan for me to actually acquire it based on what the wholesaler was asking for. And in the end, great buy. That said, I feel like I'm in the same position. I've got an opportunity that's presented itself. I'm 2 days away from being in beautiful Miami, surrounded by a bunch of other investors that make this their lifeblood on a day-to-day basis. And I've got something that's presented itself that I'm going to bring to you guys and let you guys take an opportunity to maybe analyze when you get some free time. So if you can, grab a pen and paper. We're going to go over some numbers real quick, and I'd love to hear your opinion on what you think about this type of a deal. So this is a 6-house package down in St. Charles. For anyone who's in the know, maybe you've seen it already, maybe you're aware of it, maybe you got an MLS drip that's sent it to you already, maybe your broker's already contacted you. I happen to know the broker. They contacted me directly and let me know about it. I saw it come over on the MLS as well because I've got a daily feed that's basically sending me properties in various areas that meet my criteria. Long story short, it's a 6-house package that comes with 3 vacant non-buildable lots, which to me essentially really have no value, and then 1 lot that has a community well on it for the 6 single families that come with this package. The seller, this is what makes it really interesting. The seller is willing to entertain the idea of holding a note for 1 year for the purchaser, on behalf of the purchaser. So they're going to seller finance the deal on a 1-year balloon, assuming at full purchase price at 8% interest. So I'm going to start going over the numbers real quick. Again, this may be an exercise for you guys, but in the end, it's an exercise for me. And I kind of already know what I want to know about this property or about this opportunity, but I'm going to explain it to you guys and explain how I feel about it and why. So for these 6 single families, 9 properties total, the total acquisition price is $712,000. That's the asking price that the seller's looking for. Honestly, I don't know. Based on what I know of the area, which is it's a good area. There's some of these properties are actually right along the Fox River and the Fox River Valley area of Illinois, which adds some value, but definitely adds some curb appeal or neighborhood desire. The purchase price, if you divide it up per single family house, is about $118,000. based on what I can see from the exterior, I've not been on the interior of the properties yet. I'm going to take a guess that's probably roughly within at least 10 to 15% what these properties are probably worth. 3 of the properties appear to be in really good condition. 3 of the properties appear that they're going to need some TLC at a minimum on the exterior, and I'm sure on the inside as well, because typically the outside of a property kind of dictates what you're going to see on the inside, right? If it looks like crap on the outside, then more than likely it's going to look like crap on the inside, and vice versa. Not always a hard and fast rule, but I'd say that's a pretty reliable rule of thumb for the most part. So the seller is willing to seller finance this deal for 1 year. That's what really interests me. To be able to control 6 single-family homes and do it creatively allows for a little bit of fudge factor on the numbers on behalf of the buyer, because you don't have to come up with actual bank financing or potentially any financing depending on the deal, right? So they're looking for $712,000. They're looking for a 20% down payment, and my math shows me that's $142,000. $142,400, which, yep, that's a big chunk of change. I mean, you can definitely buy an entire single-family house and cash flow probably the equivalent of what this is going to cash flow based on the current rents for that price. So I ran all the numbers already. If I were to come up with $142,000 out of pocket, which technically about $18,000 of that would come to me as commission because I'm a broker, so that's a nice little bonus there. That would leave a balance to the seller of $569, we'll call it $570,000 roughly, at 8% is what they're looking for on an interest rate. On a 30-year amortization, that total payment actually comes to $4,180 a month. That's the payment to the seller for that initial year. Now, these houses currently are rented at $1,050 each per month, which is a total of, obviously, it's like $6,300 per month. So I already added the taxes and factored all that stuff in. That comes to a total annual payment of $19,391. Divide that by 12. That's a monthly payment of $1,615 just in taxes. Not including insurance by any capacity, because that's going to be another roughly $60, $70 per month. Call it, just for the sake of discussion, call it $100 per house. That's another $600 per month. So just to acquire the properties and putting down $142,000, total all-in payment, if you finance through the seller, is $4,180 plus $1,615, which is, let me do the math on that one. I didn't actually add that up. $4,180 plus $1,615 per month, which is basically your principal, interest, and taxes, is $57.95 per month. Now we got to talk about insurance. Like I said, insurance is roughly around here. Single-family properties of those size are going to be about $750 per year per house. So that is $4,500 per year. Divide that by 12. That's $375 a month. $57.95 plus $375 per month equals $61.70. So my all-in PITI, principal, insurance, taxes, and interest payment would be $66,170 per month, and the rents currently are only $6,300 per month. So anybody who's don't need a math degree to figure that out, there's not a lot of meat on that monthly net, right? It's only $130 cash flow per month on these properties. Now, I started thinking about this a little bit differently. I'm thinking, well, $142,000 for a down payment, got a year to come up with a refi, probably going to need at least another $60,000 to rehab these properties to some degree, right? I can tell one of them needs a roof, some of them may need some exterior painting, even if it's just landscaping work. Let's just say we're going to toss $60,000 into this project. Probably going to need to borrow down payment plus some rehab funds, about $200,000 if I wanted to go into this deal no money down. On the last podcast, Investor Empowerment Series Radio Show number 43, we touched on sandwich lease options and how an investor can get into a deal no money down. This might be an example if you're going to borrow private funds, which I happen to have several investors that I've been working with that have been borrowing private funds to me. I know I could go to them with a deal like this at an interest rate of roughly 8%. I'm going to run those numbers down the line real quick, but right now, if I were to come into this deal and I were to buy the properties for full price, borrow the $142,000, we'll set the rehab funds aside right now, and pay the owner their interest rate of 8%, I'd only be making that $130 a month net. Doesn't seem like it makes any sense whatsoever on an upfront face value. Now, what I started to think about was, okay, these properties, given the area, which is actually in a good school district, it's in a good community, $1,050 per month per house is actually fairly low. Even a house needing some TLC in that area probably should be renting for about $1,200 a month. So right away, that's the power of these numbers here. Let's say I was able to immediately go in there, and I don't have copies of the leases yet. I noticed on the MLS that some of them are expiring here in the next couple months. But let's say I'm able to immediately go in there and raise the rents from $1,050 a month to $1,200 a month. That effectively raises my gross income for the month to $7,200 per month, as opposed to the $6,300. So that adds in another $900 a month, which would effectively be pure profit for doing nothing at that point. So then I'd be making about $1,000 a month on these 6 houses. Now it's starting to make a little more sense. Now, granted, this probably would not be an overnight process. There's probably, or I know there's some leases in place already, but they're ending here shortly. Some of these tenants might want to remain on a month-to-month. I might be able to just jack the rent right away. And if they vacate, which I would anticipate some of them will, probably half for sure, that would give me the opportunity to go in there, do a little cleanup work, fix some stuff, and then re-rent them for even higher than $1,200 a month, because I think the going rate for those types of properties in that area should be roughly about $1,350. So this is really more of an add value opportunity. You've got a year, you've got 6 houses. You got 6 houses to add some TLC to. If I were to raise those rents to $1,350 a month on 6 houses, now my total monthly income is $8,100 per month. $8,100 after some repair. And we'll call it another $60,000 investment just for the sake of discussing. You take that $8,100, you minus your monthly payment to the seller, which is $4,180. That leaves you $3,920 per month. Now let's factor in some taxes and insurance. Taxes are $1,615 per month. That leaves me $2,300, and insurance of $375 per month, as I previously stated, for all 6 houses. Now we're looking at $1,930 in profit or net income for this package, just by doing some TLC work, which I'm going to try to minimize the amount of, obviously, and raising the rents to where I think they should be after there's some nice, clean, happy rental houses there at $1,350 a month. So now I'm going to be making $1,900 a month. Again, I'm still out of pocket $142,000 plus my rehab costs. Not the greatest investment. I mean, if I were to run these numbers real quick, assuming I put $200,000 into it, and I'm making $1,930, that's only like a 9% return. I mean, it's still not terrible, but it's not the greatest thing ever. I mean, it'll work. I think a lot of investors would be interested in this type of a package, which is why I'm bringing it out there and putting it on the podcast. But for me, I'm normally looking for meatier deals. What I'm seeing here, though, is the opportunity for that acquisition with no bank financing up front, and then the opportunity for a refi. And here's where it really gets interesting. So if I'm going to refinance this property within a year, or I could potentially sell it, we're gonna guesstimate that after these houses have 10,000 into them, that they're worth about 140 to 150,000 a piece after their, the 1 year period when they've been repaired and they're re-rented. That means that this package that I bought for $712,000 is now worth $900,000. So I've still got my investment of $200,000 in down payment and repairs, but my total overall investment initially, if you add it all up, is only at $712,000. I'm sorry, $772,000. So it's the $712 purchase price plus $60,000 in rehab. So I basically need to get my money back out of this deal. When I run the numbers on that, which is $772,000, which I'm fairly confident will be able to refi this package, even if I have to leave a little money on the table, which is what I typically would do. This is a much larger type deal. Wouldn't want to necessarily do that. I'd want to pull everything out if possible. If I were to get a commercial loan, which is typically what I use, at 5.5% over a 25-year period, let me run the numbers real quick. $772,000, 5.5% amortized over 25 years on a 5-year balloon. Now my payment is $47.40 a month to the bank. I still have to pay my taxes of $16.15, which totals, real quick, I'm using a calculator because I've done my guesstimates in the past on this podcast and I don't want to be wrong because I have been before. So with taxes, that means my principal, interest, and tax payment is $63.55, so we'll call it $63.50 for the sake of discussing, plus $375 a month in insurance. Now I'm all in. My monthly payment is $67.30 for principal, interest, taxes, and insurance. And what did I say if I was raising those rents to $13.50 a month? What's the difference now? 6 houses at $13.50 each is $8,100. $8,100 minus my total PITI, $67.30. That leaves $1,370 in monthly net income for these 6 houses after everything's paid for, not including any type of routine maintenance and vacancies and things like that. Now, divide that by house. That means I'll be making roughly $228 per house. But the key to this is I've refinanced. I've pulled out all my money. I've paid off the original seller who is willing to finance for the first year, and I've paid off a private lender that has lent me $142,000 for a down payment, as well as we'll call it $60,000 for general repairs. Everyone's paid off at this point because my portfolio has increased in value. I was able to refinance it, and now I've got no money in the deal, and everyone's paid off already. So I need to look at these numbers a little harder. I don't think this is a slam dunk deal by any means, but when I run the numbers, if the portfolio is worth $900,000 as I anticipate, and I need to do a refi, hold on one second, running my math here. If I can do a 75% refi, well, the way I ran my numbers was I paid off in full, so nobody else is owed money. So $772,000 times, if I can get an 80% loan, that would mean I'd need the portfolio to be worth about $926,000, or I'd be probably coming out of pocket for $26,000. So I know that's a lot of numbers. I'm throwing a lot of concepts at you. I'm just going back and forth here. Interesting deal. This could potentially profit. No money down after 1 year. Roughly, I think we came to, rough numbers, roughly $1,300 a month. Not the meatiest of deals, but there's no money involved in it at all. I've paid back my private lenders. I've refinanced that original seller, and I'm making now $1,300 a month. Yes, there's going to be vacancies. Yes, there's going to be some repairs. So, quick numbers, probably more likely going to make about $1,000 a month. But again, I've got no investment in this deal. The real key factor to this and how it could work out in the end is what this portfolio would be worth, this portfolio of these 6 properties would be worth after the repairs are done and the rents are raised. If the properties would be worth $925,000, as my number said, and I was able to get that loan, then everybody can get paid off 100%. Nothing's in the deal. Typically with commercial lending, they're willing to give you somewhere around between 65 to 75% of the value of the property or properties. So if I run those numbers, and we'll just say that the portfolio is worth $925,000, which I estimate is very possible, that would be $154,000 per house, an increase of about, about 30 some grand per property for doing some minor repair and rehabs. And if I can get a loan at 75% of its value, that leaves $693,750. That's what that loan amount would be for. We'll call it $700,000 just for the sake of discussing. That still leaves my repair costs essentially into this deal. Roughly $700, I said. If I borrowed $142 for the down payment and I put another $60 into it, that comes to $200,000. If I can make the portfolio worth $925 and I refinance at 75% of its value, then that's going to pay off $700,000 of that loan. I've still got a balance of $72,000 with my private lender, depending on how much money I need to borrow for those repairs. Again, I estimated $60,000. So there's $72,000 still in the deal that I either have to pay off on my own out of pocket, or possibly refinance with that private lender and say, hey, let's extend this for a couple years. I'll pay it down, in the next 2, 3, 4 years. That could all be worked out. That again, though, would lower that payment amount because I ran my numbers at a loan of $772,000, 100% financed all in. So kind of an interesting deal. That would probably be more realistic, where I'd have to leave that number in the deal. We'll call it about 70. Again, $75,000 would have to be left into the deal itself that I'd have to somehow either come up with on my own or pay it off. So if I run that calculation, if I get a new loan at $700,000 and I have a 5.5% interest rate amortized over 25 years, that payment would be $42.98 per month plus $16.15 for taxes, plus $375 a month for insurance for all these properties. That total comes to $62.88. So $6,288 in PITI. And I've got them rented, hypothetically, in my add value proposition here, at $8,100. So that's, at that point, I'm making $1,812 per month. 1812 divided by my total investment, if it was left at that $72,000, that is a much better return. Now we're looking at a 25% return on the investment because I've only got $75,000 in the deal. I'm getting a return of $1,800 per month. So you can do the math there on your own if you'd like. I think I went over that on another podcast, but we can do it again if needed. 1812 times 25. No, that doesn't work. So again, in the end, just to wrap this up, it's about a 20-minute podcast on analyzing this deal. Interesting. This is what you got to do to be an investor. These are the types of packages or opportunities you got to constantly be looking at. Unique in this situation that the seller's willing to offer 1-year balloon financing at 8%. Numbers don't really work that well, in my opinion, on the upfront, but for the right exit package and depending how much money you want to leave into the actual deal itself, there could be a potential deal here, depending on how much you want to invest. On that number I was talking about before, if I was to leave that $75,000 in the deal and I'm getting $1,800 a month, that means that's a net profit of $21,750 a year approximately. I've got $75,000 invested. You'll see that I told you my number was a 25% return. Now you can see how that makes sense to some degree, because it's going to take me roughly three and a half years to pay off that investment of $75,000. And that's where that number comes from. 25% would actually be 4 years to pay it off. But let me do the math here. That would be a little bit over $86,000 in 4 years. So not a bad opportunity, maybe not the greatest opportunity. Not as great of a deal up front when you're financing from the seller. Definitely not that great of a deal when you're financing both the down payment as well as the repairs. But you have no money down on the deal, right? You've got none of your own money invested. And then when you can convert this in 1 year and raise the rents to $1,350 a month, and then generate, essentially an extra $2,000 a month for your value add opportunity, this makes a lot more sense. You're getting a better return on your investment. Depends on what you want to leave in the deal, but there's definitely some opportunity to make this work. If you could do potentially no money at all in the deal and refinance all of your cash out. You could potentially leave some money in the deal, as we discussed, maybe $75,000 or $100,000. That will give you about a $1,800 to $2,000 a month net cash flow in your pocket for these 6 properties. Definitely something to think about. So I'm going to sit on this for a day here. I'm going to think about it. I'm going to keep running my numbers. I just put this together real quick to do a podcast on it. Next you're going to hear from me is IMN, out there with Eddie and Chris and Lee, as well as some of the other attendees, and going to all those great panels and conferences and meetings, and meeting some great people. So I look forward to talking to you guys soon. Keep in touch. Stay tuned. All right.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Investor Empowerment Series radio show. Be sure to tune in next week for another empowering episode. We welcome your feedback, so please rate us on iTunes and Stitcher, and visit us at www.investorempowermentchicago.com or tennisgrouprealty.com.